What's up, movie fans? Guys, so The Suicide Squad, James Gunn's soft reboot of 2016's Suicide Squad, just came out, and in spite the fact that it is rated R, I have now watched this, and just saying that if you are 12 years old or under, like around that age, you definitely should not watch this movie because it is extremely violent. I can't say an age older than 12 because then I would be hypocritical considering I'm 14. This movie is an extremely violent reboot, soft reboot of 2016 Suicide Squad. Like, it still takes place in the same universe as Suicide Squad, but it doesn't really acknowledge it. Like, it's weird. I actually rewatched the 2016 version of Suicide Squad in preparation for this movie, and holy crap, the first time I watched it, I only watched it once before that, and the first time, I remember it being bad, but I don't remember it being that bad. But this time, it was horrible. The 2016 version of this movie is just terrible. Now, let's get into James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. So I'm going to talk about everything I liked about it, then everything I disliked, and then give my final score. Starting off, everything I liked about it. One of the main things that a lot of people disliked about the original Suicide Squad is that it feels like it's kind of having an identity crisis between trying to be a comedy and trying to be this drama at the same time, and so a lot of the time it feels very, like, tonally inconsistent. This movie definitely does not have that problem, because this movie is a comedy, and it knows that it is a comedy. This movie prioritizes, like, humor over everything else, and it is hilarious. This is an extremely funny movie. I was laughing throughout almost the whole thing. Every single joke in this whole movie landed. It is just hilarious. But at the same time, this movie also still knows how to let dramatic moments play out. It knows when to be serious and it knows when to be funny. This movie just works basically in every scene and everything it's trying to do. And I mean, that's something that I kind of expected, considering this is made by James Gunn, who made the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which are also movies that are really funny but manage to balance it out with drama. Like, this movie does manage to do exactly what they did. Another thing that's really great about this movie are the characters. So I'm going to start with some of the characters that are returning from the first movie. I'm not going to talk about all of the characters here because there are a lot of characters in this movie. I'm just going to be talking about, like, the ones that I thought stood out. First off, all of the characters that are returning from the first movie. Harley Quinn is great as always in this movie. Like, Margot Robbie is doing exactly what she did in the first movie and in Birds of Prey. She's great as Harley Quinn. Like, she is fantastic in that role. Most people agree on that. She does great again here. Captain Boomerang and Amanda Waller are returning from the first movie, and I think that they both did a great job at doing exactly what they did in the first movie. Like, Captain Boomerang was one of the more lighthearted comic relief characters. He is pretty funny here. Amanda Waller, I think that this movie shows, like, how ruthless she can be. She really does feel like a villain here. I think that all three of those characters all did exactly what they did in the first movie, some of them even better. But I think the standout returning character has to be Rick Flag. Rick Flag is one is a character who wasn't really that great in the first movie. He was kind of just generic military guy. But here, he does so much better. They take the little intrigue that his character had in the first movie and they amplify it to make him a really compelling character who had a lot of my favorite scenes in this movie. I loved Rick Flag in this movie. Let's talk about the new characters, which there are a lot of. So first off, Idris Elba's Bloodsport and John Cena's Peacemaker. They both kind of had, like, this rivalry throughout the movie, and I thought that they were really funny with each other. They had great chemistry, and at the same time, they also had layers of depth to their character that I think made them both pretty interesting and compelling, especially Bloodsport. Two characters who I think are probably the weirdest characters ever, like, in all of DC or Marvel comics. Like, these are just the weirdest characters I've ever heard of. Polka-Dot Man and T.D.K. Like, these two characters are just ridiculous. And in this movie, I think they did do a great job at making fun of their powers. There were a lot of funny moments with them. And at the same time, surprisingly enough, Polka-Dot Man actually has some depth to his character and has a character arc. How is that even possible? How did they manage to make me care about a character named Polka-Dot Man? I don't know how they managed to do it, but they did. Let's talk about the two animal characters in this movie, King Shark and Weasel, both of whom work for very different reasons. King Shark, I just think, was so adorable and wholesome. He's basically this big baby, and I thought that he was really funny. And then also, he's like one of the most brutal characters in the whole movie during the action sequences. I find it funny how they managed to make this character who's extremely brutal also really funny at the same time. And then Weasel is really creepy. He's just this really obscure character who they make a lot of jokes about. I loved what they did with his character. I thought that both King Shark and Weasel were done great. And the final character I'm going to talk about is Ratcatcher 2, who was kind of like the heart and soul of this movie. She was this incredibly sweet character, and I thought that, like, her and her relationship with her pet rat Sebastian and all of that was just really sweet and wholesome, and I just really liked her character. I actually lied. There is one more character I'm going to talk about. The last character I'm going to talk about, Starro. I'm not going to say too much for spoiler reasons, but Starro, they managed to surprisingly make me care about this character. I'm not even kidding with you. It's a giant alien starfish, and yet they actually made me care about, like, this character who could have easily just ended up being this weird villain with no real personality. But it's really interesting what they did with him. And also, he had some dark twists revolving around him. Once again, not gonna say what they are for spoiler reasons. I thought that, like, that what they did with him was really surprising and really well done. So yeah, I really liked a lot of the characters in this movie. And the final good thing that I'm going to talk about here is the action, which I thought was really great a lot of the time. Like, there's a lot of great action in this movie. There's one action sequence in particular, revolving around Harley Quinn, that I thought was amazing. And this movie is also extremely bloody and gory. Like, the R rating is extremely justified. Like I said, if you are, like, 12 or under, definitely don't watch this movie. It's not for you. Yeah, now, moving on to some of the things I didn't like about this movie now. There aren't a lot, okay? But there is one thing, and in order to talk about it, I do need to get into spoilers, so there will be a time that comes up on the screen right now. Skip there if you want to avoid these spoilers. So, I thought that the ending of the movie was kind of unsatisfying. Because I think that, like, Rick Flagg's death, which was the hardest hitting emotional moment in the whole movie for me, that scene was just so good. But I felt like it was kind of meaningless by the end of the movie because they didn't, like, leak the hard drive information. But I think that they should have. I think that Amanda Waller should have gotten what she deserved. Now, it is possible that they make a third movie and she does get what's coming to her in that movie, which I really hope happens. But at the same time, that doesn't seem likely because this movie actually isn't doing well at the box office. So, I don't know. The ending of this movie just kind of seems unsatisfying to me. So, ultimately, The Suicide Squad is amazing. I love this movie. I think it's really weird how in 2021, the DCEU now has managed to release their two best movies. This is their best movie. It managed to edge out the Snyder Cut by a little bit. I really like this movie. You should definitely watch this movie. Like I said, it isn't doing very well right now. I think it should be doing well because it's amazing. So you should definitely watch it if you're older than 12. So ultimately, I'm gonna give this a 9 out of 10. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and see ya, movie fans.